everybody. This is Chef Abby from Whole Health Every Day, coming to you live from my quarantine kitchen here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm really happy to be here with all of you today. Going to be showing you some really great plant-based dishes that you can make at home to hopefully help you learn how to cook a little bit better, to occupy your time during this sort of stressful time, and also some things that taste really great and have a whole lot of really great health benefits. So before we get started, if you are new to Whole Health Every Day, just wanted to give you a little bit of background information about who we are and what we do. We are a company of over 15 chefs in both California and now in Arizona, in Scottsdale, and we specialize in meal prep and weekly planning of menus for people who have specialty diets, who are trying to eat healthier, people who have specialty diets because of disease or sickness. And so all of these things are things that we specialize in. All of our chefs are trained chefs. They each specialize in different areas of this. We've got nutritionists, we've got people that are experts in different types of diets. So pretty much anything that you need in terms of a specialized meal program, we have got you covered. So today, I'm going to be showing you how to make a really great plant-based meal. Now, eating plant-based is something that is a big buzzword these days. A lot of people are talking about it, but what does that really mean? Basically, when we talk about a plant-based diet, we're talking about two specific factors. First of all, we're talking about natural foods that don't come with any heavily processing, any refinement or anything like that. All natural foods. And we're also talking about a diet that does not involve meat products or animal products of any kind. Now, there's sometimes a little bit of confusion between a plant-based diet and a vegan diet, and basically the way that I kind of try to explain it to people is that a vegan lifestyle is based off of a plant-based diet, but really it's kind of plant-based made bigger. It's bigger version of plant-based because of the fact that most people who operate under a vegan lifestyle, in addition to not eating anything that has any animal products in it, but they also don't, for example, use products, household products that contain animal products, or wear clothing that might contain something related to an animal. So that's kind of the difference there. Now, why is this important? Why should you consider a plant-based lifestyle? Well, it has so many great benefits for boosting your immune system. It helps to control heart disease. It's been proved to help lower your risk of getting type 2 diabetes. It also helps with certain types of cancer. So lots of really great things from the health side. It also helps you to reduce your carbon footprint a little bit. I mean, if you're eating all natural, all plant-based foods, that carbon footprint is going to go down a little bit. So that's kind of just a little overview of what it means to be plant-based, and we are going to jump right in with these two recipes. And now we are going to be making a really great restaurant version of a hummus. Sometimes when you try to make hummus at home, the texture can get a little bit funny. Usually when you have this in a restaurant, it should be velvety smooth and really creamy, and that is what we are going to accomplish today. Also, we're going to be doing this with some pantry-friendly ingredients. We're going to be using canned chickpeas, so there's a time saver there, and this turns out really, really well. So if you've ever made hummus before, if you've seen recipes for hummus, pretty much the ingredients are kind of standard across the board. There's nothing really life-changing in these ingredients. Usually they all use the same probably 5 or 6 ingredients, but the way in which you incorporate these things is one of the keys to getting that really great texture that restaurant hummus is known for. So we are going to use the help of one of my favorite tools in the kitchen, a food processor, to do this. So we're going to build this in the food processor, and it's going to taste absolutely fantastic. By the way, if you're tuning in live, please say hi. Let me know you're there. If you have any questions, by all means, go ahead and and ask me. Hopefully I know the answer. If I don't know the answer, I think we've got a couple of our other chefs from Whole Health Every Day tuning in as well, so maybe they'll be able to chime in and answer. I also believe that our president and owner, Rebecca Clubb, is on the line, so she may be able to give you some great insight as well. So we'll start off with our chickpeas, and this is one 15-ounce can of chickpeas, and I like to use organic chickpeas that have low sodium. And the reason that I like low sodium is because the amount of sodium in that can vary pretty widely from brand to brand, and I like to have a lot of control and consistency over what I'm doing. So starting off with something that's low sodium and then being able to adjust the salt later on is kind of a nice thing to do. Now I did drain my chickpeas, but it's important to note that I saved the liquid that the chickpeas came in. This liquid is called agua faba, and we're actually going to be using this later on in our recipe for our vegan mayonnaise. This is kind of a miracle liquid and acts as one of the best egg substitutes you can find out there. You can use this to make mayonnaise like we're going to do later. You can absolutely use this to make really great meringue cookies. You would just whip this up like you would the whites of eggs. It's a miracle liquid. So go ahead and save that so that you can make some mayonnaise with this as well. So our can of chickpeas is going to go into our food processor, and we're also going to add some flavoring to this. Hi Rebecca, how are you? We're going to start off with a little bit of cumin in there. Also, of course, some salt. I'm using just about a half a teaspoon or so of kosher salt, a little bit of paprika. If you wanted to introduce a little bit of smoky flavor into this, you certainly could use some smoked paprika. That would taste great as well. Sweet paprika or regular paprika works fine. Also, a little bit of onion powder in this as well. And we're going to grate a clove of garlic. Now, I've got one clove of garlic here that I peeled, but I'm leaving this whole until I'm ready to use it in my hummus. And that's because sometimes garlic can give off a very strong flavor. And that strong flavor comes when the cells of the garlic are ruptured. There's a compound in garlic that's called allicin, and that's what gives garlic its harsh flavor. So if you wait until right before you're ready to use the garlic to mince it or grate it or cut it, you'll be able to control how much of that compound gets in there. And I'm just going to use a rasp style grater or a microplane to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to grate this right into the bowl of the food processor. And one clove of garlic is all you need in this. We want this to have just kind of a nice subtle garlic flavor. Now at this point, we'll go ahead and pop the lid on our food processor, and we're going to let this run. I'm not going to try to talk through this because it's a little bit loud. So we're going to let it go. We're going to stop. I'm going to scrape down the sides of this, and at this point what we're looking for in the food processor is for the pieces to be pretty nice and smooth. This isn't going to be really creamy. It's going to look a little bit gritty at this point, but have no fear, we're going to solve that in a moment. So just an initial kind of whirl on your food processor. We can stop that, and then we can move along. Now the next thing that we're going to do is combine just a quarter cup of water with about 3 tablespoons of some nice fresh squeezed lemon juice. And I squeezed this right before. Always want to do it from a lemon as opposed to buying the stuff that's pre-bottled. It takes you like an extra 30 seconds, but the flavor is definitely way better. So we're going to actually use our food processor while it's running to stream in this mixture of water and lemon juice. And I'm going to do this for about 15 seconds or so. I'm going to stop about halfway through, scrape down the sides of the food processor again, and then we'll continue along to the next step. So we're going to turn that on high, and we're just going to let this go. And I'm going to do about half of this into the food processor initially. Looks like maybe a little bit more than half, but that's all right. We're going to give it a stop. We're going to scrape it down so that we can make sure that all of that is getting nice and combined in the food processor, and then we can add the rest of that liquid into the food processor as well. So lid goes right back on, and we'll continue. That's already looking much creamier. I'm gonna try to go ahead and see if I can tip this up so that you can see what it looks like at this point. You can see that it's still a little bit gritty. That's okay. We are about to solve that issue as well. So I'm just gonna set this right to the side for a moment while we address the final ingredients that will go into this. Now, if you've ever made hummus, you probably know that the main ingredient that gives hummus its signature flavor is tahini. And tahini is it's a paste essentially of sesame seeds that have been ground and roasted. It's got really deep flavor. It's super high in protein, tons of antioxidants. It's really good for you. Now, when you buy tahini at the grocery store, especially if it's your first time working with it, you'll know that the tahini is going to separate sort of the way that natural peanut butter does. So what I like to do, and I find the best way to get it to a consistency where it's nice and smooth again, is to transfer it out of the container that it comes in into a nice big bowl. And that way you can whisk it together pretty vigorously and you'll end up with a really nice smooth paste. You want this to be at the point where it's really nice and homogeneous so that you don't end up with a gritty or grainy hummus. Now, to our tahini, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of a really high quality extra virgin olive oil. And we'll talk a little bit more about extra virgin olive oil in a little bit, but I'm going to just whisk this together until it's nice and combined. And then again, as we did with the lemon juice and the water, we're going to stream this into the food processor with the food processor running. So we'll pop this back over. You'll have to forgive me. Clearly, this is not a professional kitchen. I'm doing this in my own kitchen. So things going in and out of the camera are inevitable for me. So we're going to turn this on and we're going to slowly stream in our mixture. And as we do this, we're going to see that this gets super creamy and delicious. So we'll make this take about 30 seconds or so. And again, if I feel like I need to scrape down the bowl halfway through, I will certainly do that. Now, the reason that this is going to get really creamy from doing it this way is because now that we're adding oil to this mixture, we're creating an emulsion. So basically, we're creating a really stable suspension of both the fat and the liquid that is in this food processor, and it's going to all come together, be super cohesive, and again, stay really creamy. I can see most of those lumps are smoothing out very beautifully, and this is looking absolutely fantastic. I don't want to waste even a little bit of this, so we'll make sure that we scrape all of that out, and we will allow this to run for just a second. Now I do see that I've got a little bit of some of this mixture up on the sides of the food processor. So to ensure that this is absolutely perfectly smooth, I will come through and kind of scrape this out a little bit, make sure that everything's nice and incorporated, redistributed, and we can pop this back on and just let it go for another 10 seconds or so, and then we'll be good to go. Now, this is just a traditional kind of bare bones version of this hummus, but this is one of those places where you absolutely could get super creative with what you flavored this with. You could certainly roast some red peppers, throw some roasted red peppers in this. You'd have a great roasted red pepper hummus. I personally will probably take a couple of jalapenos, roast those, chop those up and put them in here to give you something that's super spicy and delicious. The world is kind of your oyster in the way that you flavor this hummus. Now, at this point, if you were making this for a party or if you were making this at home, you would want to pop this into a sealed container in the refrigerator and allow it to sit in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes or so. And that's really just going to kind of allow all of those flavors to nicely come together, and it's also going to make it so that the hummus has set up just a little bit. But for our intents and purposes today, I'm going to pop this right into my serving container that we'll be serving this with, and we can go ahead and move on, save that. Now, in terms of a really great way to garnish this, lots of different things you could do, but I am just going to chop up a little bit of fresh cilantro, and we'll garnish this with some fresh cilantro. Now, cilantro is an herb that I absolutely love. I know this is probably one of the more polarizing herbs in the herb world. So if you are somebody that does not like the taste of cilantro, there's actually like a 25% of the world's population is genetically predetermined to think that cilantro tastes like soap. So if you're a soapy cilantro person, or if you know someone in your family who is, you could absolutely use a different type of herb like parsley. A little bit of dill or tarragon would be good on there as well. But the thing to know about cilantro is that it's a little bit different than other delicate herbs like parsley, in that you absolutely can use both the stems and the leaves of cilantro. If you were using something like parsley, you would want to use only the leaves, because the stems can get a little bit bitter. But the stems of cilantro are sweet and they're delicious, so they absolutely can be used in most applications. So I'm just going to give that a nice rough chop when I'm working with herbs. I do like to do a little bit rougher chop as opposed to a really fine mince, because I find the more that you kind of break down the cells of those herbs, the more they start tasting a little bit grassy and they don't taste nice and bright and fresh. So I always err on the side of a little bit rougher chop when I am working with my herbs. Now the last thing that we will do here is just give this a really quick drizzle with just a little bit more extra virgin olive oil right over top. And that is that. That is our first dish. We've got a really great, smooth and creamy restaurant style hummus. So hope you guys give that one a try. Again, hope you're a little bit creative in how you season it. Try it in its bare bones form initially, and then you can go ahead and get crazy with your hummus. So we're going to make pita chips to go with that right now. And this is something that could not be easier. And of course, you can certainly buy pita chips in the grocery store these days, but they're really easy to make. And again, this is one of those situations where you know that you have full control over all of your ingredients, because you see what you're using and you also see what you are putting into it. So we're going to start with some pita bread, as the name would suggest. No surprise there. So depending on your taste preferences, certainly your dietary preferences, you can really use any type of pita that you wanted here. If you wanted to use a whole wheat pita, that would be fine. You would get great results if you were gluten-free. You could use a gluten-free version of pita bread to do this. I'm using just a pretty standard pita bread, because in these coronavirus days, this was all I could find in the grocery store. So we're gonna go with it. We're gonna make it work, and they're still gonna taste absolutely great. Now, depending on the brand of pita that you find, sometimes you can use something like kitchen shears to kind of cut around the seam, because there's quite a bit of air in between the two layers of the pita. I did a couple of these before I went live this morning, so I know that these are a little bit more finicky. So I'm just going to use my knife here, and this is not, difficult to do, but it's also not, these are not super precious. So if you don't get it perfectly right the first time, that's no big deal. You can try again on another pita. You'll still get great results if these aren't absolutely perfect. So really, all you want to do is just kind of take your knife and, using pretty nice pressure, go in between both of the layers. I'm going about halfway in between the pita. And the slower that you do this, just take your time, a little bit at a time will be the easiest way to do this. And as we work our way around, and kind of trying to work my knife in between those two layers. And the reason that we want to do this is because I'm trying to expose the kind of rough center of these pita. We're going to use that to get a little bit of browning on these, and it's also going to be something that will hold on to the extra virgin olive oil that we are going to eventually be slathering these with. So see, not hard, take your time, but now you can see that you've got those nice rough edges on that inside of our pita bread. So again, this is super simple. You only need 3 ingredients to do this: some pita bread, some really good extra virgin olive oil, and a little bit of kosher salt. So just gonna take my pastry brush here, and we're going to just kind of give a light coating of the extra virgin olive oil on the pita bread. Now, Extra virgin olive oil is another one of these superfoods that I just absolutely love. I cook with it almost all the time. It's got tons and tons of health benefits. It's got loads of antioxidants. It's really good in terms of lowering heart disease. So many people eat on what we're referring to as a Mediterranean diet. This Mediterranean diet is it has proven that it lowers heart disease and it's just really, really good for you. So what I mean by a Mediterranean diet is lots of extra virgin olive oil, minimizing the amount of meats that you're eating, a diet that's focused mostly on beans and grains and legumes and all of those types of things. It's super, super healthy. Lots of fish. Usually the protein is not the biggest portion of the meal. Usually it's sort of kind of the side as opposed to the main, which I think is very different from how most Americans eat. But yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. So a little bit of extra virgin olive oil down on those, and then we will go ahead and just sprinkle with a little bit of kosher salt right on top. And now you'll notice that I'm sprinkling my salt from way up high. I'm not trying to be flashy with you. You actually get better coverage of your seasoning if you sprinkle from a little bit higher as opposed to doing it right down on your food. So if you're at home, if you're cooking, if you want to feel flashy and you want to get good coverage on your seasoning, give it a sprinkle from way up high, and that's a great way to do that. Now at this point, all we need to do is stack these on top of one another, and I'm going to cut my pita into 8 wedges. So just in half and then in half, and then we'll take each of these halves and cut them again. Oh, hi Fila, thank you very much. Yeah, so 8 wedges, this made 16. I'm obviously doing a smaller version of this, but if you were using the whole recipe, this would make a whole bunch of pita. And then no need to put any parchment or anything on your baking sheet. Just have a rimmed baking sheet here. We're going to lay these on the rimmed baking sheet, and I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. I've got my oven racks in the upper middle and lower middle portion of the oven, and these are going to bake in the oven for about 15 minutes. And about 7 minutes through, you'll want to go through and alternate top to bottom and front to back. So flip and rotate so that you get really good, even baking on your pita chips. Sometimes even really, really good ovens have hot spots. So anytime you're baking anything, it's always a good idea to give foods a flip so that things bake evenly. So I'm gonna step off camera, pop these into the oven, and then I will be right back. In they go. And then again, after about 7 minutes, we'll flip those around, and we'll have really great pita chips that we can have with our hummus. So that just leads us to our final recipe here, which is our vegan mayonnaise. Sorry, my mom was she's doing a little sous chefing for me. She washed my food processor out for me. Thank you very much, Mom. So we're gonna make some vegan mayonnaise, and as I mentioned at the top of this, we are obviously not going to be using any eggs. If you've ever made traditional mayonnaise at home, you know that the primary ingredient in mayonnaise is egg yolks. Well, if you're plant-based or a vegan lifestyle, you're obviously not going to be eating egg yolks, but the great news is that you can make really delicious mayonnaise without any of those egg yolks. And truthfully, I've tasted many different brands of vegan mayonnaise that you can purchase in the grocery store. It tastes so much better when you make it from scratch. I am not a vegan. I live with non-vegans, and I have convinced both of them that this is delicious mayonnaise, and they are both willing to eat it. So my dad's a big carnivore, and for him to say that he's good with it is a real testament to how delicious this is. So we are going to start with that liquid from the chickpeas, that agua faba, the canning liquid from the chickpeas. And this is 1/3 of a cup of agua faba into the food processor. And then to this, we're just going to add some flavorings to give this a little bit of flavor, and also some sort of traditional ingredients that go in most mayonnaise. So some Dijon mustard. I'm using a stone ground Dijon mustard here, but any kind of Dijon mustard that you have available would be just fine. and also some lemon juice. 1.5 teaspoons of lemon juice. It'll give it a little zip, make it taste fantastic. And of course, some salt and also some sugar. Now, it's important to note that even though sugar seems like one of those things that would be naturally vegan, it's not always the case. So if you are a vegan or trying to go full plant-based, make sure you're looking for organic sugar. That's the only way that you can guarantee that that is going to be a completely plant-based product. So just a little bit of sugar in there as well. And then we are going to add our oil. Now, if you don't have a food processor at home, have no fear. You can do this by hand. People have been making mayonnaise from, by hand since the beginning of time when food processors were not around. Know that you're going to get a really good workout if you do that. So you'll feel even less guilty about eating your vegan mayonnaise. But a food processor just makes this so much more simple and also a little bit less difficult on the arm. So 1.25 cups of oil are going to go in here, and I'm using grapeseed oil. I recommend a grapeseed oil or an avocado oil for something like this. Basically, these are my go-to oils when I'm trying to work with something that has a neutral flavor. You wouldn't want to use a whole extra virgin olive oil in this because it's just too bright and too robust in terms of flavor. Now, you could certainly, if you wanted to, use a virgin olive oil or even a light olive oil, but know that both of those products still come with the high price tag that extra virgin olive oil carries. So if you want to save your pocketbook a little bit, a grapeseed oil or an avocado oil is definitely something that I would recommend using. So basically what we're going to do is just turn this on and we're going to let this go. And I'm going to do this nice and slowly. You really want to make sure that you do this slowly so that it has this mixture has a chance to get really creamy and rich and emulsified. So this whole process is going to take me about 2 minutes, and depending on the size of your food processor and the strength of your food processor, it may take you a little bit longer than that. It may take you a little bit less time than that. Yes, that is the chickpea juice, Fila, the agua faba, the liquid from the chickpeas. So we're going to turn this on. Hopefully not splatter ourselves. We'll put this on so that that doesn't happen. And we're going to let this go. Now, the other nice thing to know about a food processor is that most of them have a little hole in the bottom of the push spout that will allow the oil to come out really, really nice and slowly. They actually, when they're developing food processors, when they're making these, they manufacture the size of that hole so that when you're trying to do something like make salad dressing in a food processor, it will actually release the liquid at the pace that you need so that this is really good and emulsified. So I'm going to pour about half of that in there. We're going to let this catch up, and we'll see as this happens. It looks pretty loose right now, but this is going to start to get really, really nice and thick and creamy and absolutely beautiful. It's also going to be a really pure white when it comes out. And again, I can't stress how much this tastes really delicious. So this is going to take a couple of minutes. So I'll give you just a couple more pointers about extra virgin olive oil. Now, of course, these days, well, maybe not these days, but in normal times, when you go to the supermarket, there are lots of different types of extra virgin olive oil. They all claim to be extra virgin olive oil, but the thing to know is that not all of those oils that you find in the grocery store are created equal. In order to be considered real extra virgin olive oil, this is a product that's regulated. In order to be considered real extra virgin olive oil, the olives have to be picked and pressed within 24 hours. So they come off the tree and have to be pressed within 24 hours. Now, there are also some things that you can look for on the label or the bottle of extra virgin olive oil to make sure that you're getting a really good product. Number one, high quality oils will have a harvest date on them as opposed to a sell-by date. And you'll want to look for the harvest date that is the most recent, because that will tell you that you're getting the freshest product. The second thing to note is that you should look for olive oils that contain olives that come from a single source. So usually on really good quality extra virgin olive oil, they'll tell you where the olives come from. So it'll say made with olives from Spain or Greece or Morocco or California. And know that if you see an oil that is made with olives from Greece, Morocco, and Spain, that's more likely to probably come from a bulk market, and they're probably more focused on producing a product that is inexpensive as opposed to high quality. So a single source is great. The last thing that is important to keep in mind is that extra virgin olive oil is essentially fresh produce, so it doesn't have an infinite shelf life. So we really don't like to keep around an open bottle of extra virgin olive oil for any more than about 3 months. So unless you're somebody that's consuming massive amounts of extra virgin olive oil, you're definitely better off buying smaller bottles of olive oil and replacing them more frequently, as opposed to buying very large, those kind of tins of extra virgin olive oil and just allowing it to sit in your cupboard for an extended period of time. So at this point, this is looking pretty good. It's really thick, nice and emulsified, but we are going to take this one step further by introducing some extra virgin olive oil into this. And I like to do this after I've already blended it in the food processor, because this food processor is so strong. Sometimes we find that the blades of the food processor can give really good extra virgin olive oil a little bit of a bitter taste. So if I'm using extra virgin olive oil in a salad dressing, if it's only extra virgin olive oil, I always like to do it by hand. But if I'm adding it to something like a mayonnaise like this, I like to add in or whisk in the extra virgin olive oil at the end. So this is 3 tablespoons of some really good high quality extra virgin olive oil. And just like we did with the grapeseed oil, we are just going to drizzle this in nice and slowly. And if you ever notice that you're getting some kind of pools of oil on the top, just stop pouring, whisk until you see those pools go away, and then you can add in the rest of the oil. Now, just like with the hummus, you could certainly get really creative with the flavors of this. This is a really great mayonnaise base, but you could go wild with this. Now, once you start adding flavorings to this, this goes from, I guess, being a traditional mayonnaise to being an aioli. So you could add some roasted garlic in this and make a really great roasted garlic aioli. Add a little bit more Dijon mustard to this, and you would have really great vegan Dijonnaise. Again, the world is kind of your oyster with that. So we've got all of that mayonnaise or extra virgin olive oil, mixed in there really nicely. I'll transfer this to another bowl so that you can see what the end product looks like. And this mayonnaise will actually stay in your refrigerator for up to 1 week in an airtight container. So you can make a big batch of this on Sunday and have really great homemade vegan mayonnaise for the rest of the week. So I'll give that a little bit of FaceTime here. Check it out. It's nice and creamy, super smooth, gonna be absolutely delicious. So I'm sure you're wondering about those pita chips. Luckily, before you guys all got here, I did a few of these in advance so you can see this is what they look like at the end. They're beautifully crisp, nice and golden brown, absolutely delicious. And that is our restaurant style hummus with homemade pita chips and our homemade vegan mayonnaise. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Have a great day, stay safe, and be healthy. Bye-bye.